Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of our podcast show. I am absolutely fired up today. We've got an incredible lady sitting behind me, a lady who's been an entrepreneur for a few years and has made millions of dollars as an entrepreneur and basically didn't even have a car. So without any further ado, we got Pamela Spence right here with us. Pamela, how are you?
Great, how are you?
Very, very good. So thank you for coming in today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I'd love to start off and just ask you some questions from the very beginning. So as an entrepreneur, I'm told that you don't have a car and that you don't drive. Is that true?
Very true.
Okay, tell us about that. Why don't you have a car living in Southern California?
Well, I did used to drive,
Okay.
but when my business started exploding, driving from Santa Monica to Valencia, which is where my first office I opened, I realized I was wasting a lot of time where I could have been productive.
Sure.
And so I decided to ditch the car and allow somebody else to drive me so that I can be productive during that commute.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you do have a license.
Yes, I do.
Okay, and you did drive,
Yes.
but now you're just really trying to max out your time.
Exactly.
And being as productive as you can, which is phenomenal, right? Because most people always say, I mean, especially living in California, we spend so much time driving, and what you did is it's easier for you to hire an Uber driver or a Lyft driver, right? A shout out to Uber and Lyft for you guys right there. So that you can really max out your time.
Exactly.
Wow, that's okay. So I thought for a second, like, you didn't even have a driver's license living in Southern California, you know? You know, it's crazy because when I was younger, I was like 14, I wanted to have a driver's license, right?
Yeah.
And I remember turning 15 and a half years of age to get down to the DMV. I wanted my license like day one. I wanted to get what they call a permit, I think it was what it was called, right? And this generation, I think people are a little more relaxed about, they're not as driven or ambitious about getting their license. And so I thought you didn't have a license, you know?
Yeah.
Well, so tell me about your background. So where'd you grow up? You grew up in Southern Cal?
Born in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And my family moved up to Lancaster, Palmdale area when I was about 10 years old. And then moved to Valencia when I was about 19. So as soon as I could get out of the town that I was growing up in, I definitely moved out.
And just got out. And then you came down to LA pretty much. Yeah. All right. And your background. So so growing up, did you always know as a kid that you wanted to be an entrepreneur, or?
I think I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I remember, you know, my parents we don't come from a lot of money.
Yeah.
My mom's a teacher, my dad's a mechanic, and so just having things like wanting to have clothes or being able to do things. There wasn't really any extra money for that, so I was kind of a little entrepreneur selling candy and just doing different things that I could do to make enough money to actually go shopping.
Yeah.
So I think my first time like being an entrepreneur I was like about 9-10 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what were you selling? Was it a service? Were you like babysitting? I mean, like.
No, I would actually, we'd go to Smart and Final, my sister and I, and we would buy like the bulk of candy, and kids always wanted candy, and so we knew that I'm really, really good at math, and so I basically figured out that the cost of my mom buying it for like $4 and how much I would make would be like $10 to $20 in profit. And so I knew each box that we sold that I'd at least be able to buy one new thing every week.
Okay. Wow. So you knew from day one you were going to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, pretty much.
And so now you're now in the financial service industry. How did you know you wanted to get into that industry or field? Like, how did you stumble on that and not start some e-commerce type business or whatever?
Yeah, I didn't. My first career was in managing apartment buildings, and so I did that for about 4 years. I started in that industry when I was 19, worked my way up the corporate ladder, and by the time I was 23, I realized that I did not want to work in corporate America for the rest of my life. I wanted to have more freedom of time, more flexibility, and just being able to really be my own boss. And I realized that no matter how many hours I worked or how high I climbed, it would never be mine. And so I just started being open-minded. I had a lot of friends in real estate at the time, and that was around, you know, when the market crashed in 2008, and people were making a lot of money doing that. But I kind of dabbled in that industry for a little bit and just realized it wasn't the right environment for me.
Yeah.
And so I just, through prayer and just keeping an open mind, I was actually referred into the financial services industry. I did not even know it existed. I knew nothing about it. But a great opportunity came my way. And so I just definitely, took it. I was like, this is my shot.
Okay. Now, what do you attribute your success to? Why do you think there's so many people that start a business, they don't become successful, and they go back to their JOBs? What is it that you think is a secret sauce or ingredient that you could share with people that helped you to become successful?
I have a very logical mind, and so when I look at things, I'm very like, okay, what are the pros, what are the cons? Like, what's the best case scenario, what's the worst case scenario? And so I knew that all jobs are pretty much the same. I wasn't going to get what I was looking for, which is, again, flexibility, freedom of time, being able to do what I want when I want. And so a job wasn't going to provide that for me. So, continuing down that path wasn't going to work. But being an entrepreneur, I realized that at some point in time, I was going to be able to receive all those things that I was looking for. And so it didn't matter to me how long it took. It's what I wanted, like strongly. And so, just being, having the hunger and having the drive to be able to say, like, I got what I want in life.
Yeah. And so what are some of the things that you would do? What are some of the habits that you have that have helped you to be where you are today?
Some of the habits I would say is having a strong work ethic. And so I know that in being an entrepreneur, the harder you work, right, the luckier you get, and the more that you're going to receive. And so I'm the type of person that likes like a lot of excitement and want more like fast success. And so I know that if I put more hours than everybody else, then I'm going to be able to get what I want faster. And so having a really good work ethic, being disciplined. It's not about always how you feel, especially being an entrepreneur. Not every day is going to go smooth. Every day is a completely different day. Things are going to happen. But again, keeping that long-term, vision in mind and what I want at the end, and staying focused on that keeps me focused, on a day-to-day basis.
So let's talk about work ethics and what does that mean? Like, is that like manual labor? You got to do that for 10 hours, and if you did that, you'll be successful. What does it mean when you say work ethics or hard work ethics?
Well, in my field, I would say it's, and you're building a company, right? It's about you need to find great people. And so, and then also, developing others and focusing on the right things. So in the beginning of me building my business, it was, getting better at my craft, knowing that I needed to delegate or, separate some portion of my time and put that in my schedule to get better at my craft, whatever that may be at that point in time. But then also being around the right people, finding the right mentors. And so I worked for free for my mentor for a couple of years as I was really wanting to be the best in the financial services industry. I didn't want to just be somebody or that nobody knew. I wanted to be known. And so, I focused a lot of time on that for like a couple of years. But then, just taking the appropriate steps at every level that I've been at, whatever it takes at that point, which is different for everybody.
Now, did you have savings, or how were you able to work for free for a couple of years? Because not a lot of people don't have that luxury to just say, I'll work for free for a couple of years, right? So where did your source of income or financial stability come from?
So a couple of things. So my parents have never really been good with money. So I think that kids either do exactly what their parents do or they completely do the opposite. And so I happened to do the opposite. So I learned the importance of savings. And so I was always a really good saver. So I did have savings at that point. I also had purchased a home when I was 21.
Wow.
And so I had passive income coming from that. I had rented it out to keep me afloat. And then, of course, just I had kind of, when I became an entrepreneur, kind of decreased or downsized my lifestyle for a little bit so that I could, allocate more time to, growing my business and knowing that my income might be smaller in the beginning. But
Sure.
I knew it would, long term, be the best thing for my life.
What are like the top 5 things in your view that you could share with entrepreneurs or solopreneurs or someone who's been an entrepreneur for a while or a startup? What are 5 things you could share with them that they can avoid being a failure in their industry?
Someone told me, find someone who is successful in the field that you're in and do exactly what they do, because that's going to save you a lot of time, energy, and headache. And so, finding the right mentors or the right people that you can be able to go to when you are maybe not knowing what you need to do, right? So I would say that's one thing. The other thing I would say is have a plan. I think, especially in this time, right, everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. A lot of people, especially my generation, they don't want to have a job and they want more freedom and they don't want to necessarily do things like their parents did it. But I'm not a big fan of like winging it. Know exactly what it is that you're going to do. So every year I always make sure that I put a business plan together and course correct that plan, throughout the year as things are happening. So that would be a second thing. A third thing would be change your associations. And so when I started my entrepreneurial journey, all of my associations, everyone had good paying jobs.
Yeah.
And so, they are all employees. So they were not very supportive of me changing careers, especially they felt that I was doing very well for my age. I was, 23 years old. I was making $70,000 a year. That's more than both of my parents combined. And so all of my associations were like thinking I'm crazy. What are you doing? Not very supportive, asking a lot of questions. And for the first few years, a lot of people were like, just go back to being a property manager. You were really, really good at that, that was a good career for you. And so I had to change my associations and cut a lot of them completely off. And so, and some of that was family, for a few years.
Sure.
And it was tough, but I think that was definitely, a key thing, is changing my associations. Reading the right books.
Yeah.
I would literally just inhale like a book each week.
Yeah.
And so, on the weekends, that's what I was doing while everybody else was partying, while everybody else was staying out, spending money or whatever they were doing. I was at home reading books and trying to work on my mind because I knew that I needed to learn how to think differently. Yeah. And so reading the right books, for sure, even when I didn't really enjoy them, right? And so I knew that, this is what successful people do. And so I need to do exactly what they're doing, and it's not always based on how you feel. And then the fifth thing would be, I would say, having a strong why and keeping my why in front of me. That's definitely been a big one.
So let's talk about cutting people off.
Okay.
Right? Because you say, you gotta, I've heard people say that, right? In this entrepreneurial world, cut off your friends and all that. Like, what does that mean? Like, you literally will just stop calling them back, disassociate with yourself, take them out of your phone book. I mean, what does it mean by cut off your friends? Or cut off those people or whatever it is?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily like in a rude way. It's not like, hey, by the way, I'm never speaking to you again.
Okay.
They didn't do anything to me. But, you might need to change the way that you are maybe hanging out with them or maybe hang out with them less. And so what I did to kind of decide, who I needed to keep in my circle and who I needed to eliminate was ask them what their goals were and seeing if their goals were in line with what my goals were, because I had some aggressive goals. I went from making $70,000 a year and now I wasn't, right? So I couldn't just keep doing the same thing. So I had conversations with all of my friends and I let them know what my plans were and what my goals were. And if they weren't 100% supportive of them, I don't really need that negativity. And so it was more of, that and just changing that for a while. And then you can always touch base later and see where they're at. Yeah. And then maybe you can keep hanging out again. But for a time, that's So
you could still associate with them as long as they're being supportive of your dreams and your goals, right?
Correct.
So it doesn't mean like, hey, my goal is to make $1 million a month, and you only want to make your little puny $50,000 a year. Therefore, I can't associate with you, right? So it's not that kind of a cutoff.
Yes.
So it means like, at least support me in what I'm trying to do, but stay away from the people that are being unsupportive.
Correct. If
right?
they're being negative.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's a different. Things change, right? When you start to change and you're going in a different direction, maybe you did used to have fun, but then now it's not so much fun because if they're negative, then that dinner or that, whatever you used to do, go to lunch, go to brunch, now ends up being a negative, meeting versus being positive where it used to be fun and exciting and so forth.
Right. Okay, great. Yeah. We'll talk about your last comment also, how you said, know your why, right? Because as you were saying that, I kind of felt some emotions coming from you. What is your why? Like, what drives you? What is your why every day?
My whys have changed. They've evolved. Initially, and it still is being a great example to my sisters. That's probably like my deepest why. But then there was times where, maybe times were tough, right, in business. And then at that point, maybe it's proving some people right and proving some people wrong. And so that's drove me, for a little bit. And then I think now it's kind of the combination of all of that, but then also just becoming the best example that I could be for my Heavenly Father.
Awesome.
And really just living a purposeful life, and being fulfilled, and not just being an example for my sisters, but being a great example for all of, the people, within the company that I'm building.
And how many siblings do you have?
2.
You have 2. And
sisters.
You are where in the food chain?
I am the middle child.
Okay. So why is that important to you, for you to be such a great example to your other sisters?
Well, I think it started with my mom,
Yeah.
kind of instilling that in me when I was little. And so she would always say, if anything ever happened to me and your dad, you guys always have each other. And so we've always just had a really strong relationship, in that sense, where even if it's 3 girls, so bickering happens and, all of
Sister
that.
things happen.
Sister things happen. And so, but it never happens too long, because I think that's just like instilled in us. And so between myself and the youngest, we're 10 years apart.
Wow.
And in high school, I actually didn't go to traditional high school. I was homeschooled. So I pretty much raised my little sister. So she's more kind of like my daughter. And so it's just created a different thing within me of having someone always watching you.
Yeah.
And now she lives with me as well. And so I always just have her watching me, and I can see that she's always observing me and how I'm being and what I'm doing. And same thing with my, my older sister. So it's just always been there since I was little.
Yeah, I know all your sisters. It's a beautiful family, totally beautiful family, Kudos to your parents, by the way. They did great.
Yes, they did.
Let me shift gears with you. If I were to ask you, what are your favorite books or books that you would recommend to entrepreneurs? What would that be for you?
The top 3, okay. I would say definitely Think and Grow Rich, for sure. That book has helped me and continually helps me.
Sure.
Every single year as I'm growing my business. The second book I would say is Outwitting the Devil.
Yes.
I read that last year. I've read it about 3 times now.
With Sharon Lechter.
Yes, very, very good book.
Why do you recommend that book? What's special about that book?
So I think that it helps you understand really what's going on in society and with people, within people. And I think it actually, one thing I thought when I read that book is, I wish I would had this book before I read Think and Grow Rich, because sometimes people read Think and Grow Rich and they don't really understand the power, the magnitude of it.
Right.
And that happened with me as well. The first time I read it was when I was 23, so about 8 years ago. And it was a tough read, and I didn't realize how powerful it really was.
Right.
But in Outwitting the Devil, I think today the masses can understand what's really going on. And then when they read Think and Grow Rich Secondary, now they'll understand the power of what it means to really apply these principles, because you're either going to be distracted and let somebody else control your life, or you're going to take it upon yourself and control your life. So that's why I would say that book.
Okay.
And then the third book I would say was Relentless. I really, really like Relentless.
Who's the author of Relentless?
Tim Grover.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
What was your takeaway? What's like a good nugget out of that book?
In that book, from a leadership perspective, is understanding the different types of people. And when you're building a company, I think it's really important to understand, sometimes we're always trying to look at things from our own perspective, but the people that you're leading are very, very different. So being able to identify the different players that are on your team or in your company, and then how to help them, take that up a notch, and go all out and max out. So
sure, great. Thanks for being here, Pam, today, sharing your thoughts and your emotions. I mean, it was so compelling, and I felt, everything that you were sharing with us today. Thank you so much for being here. And so, folks, if you need to get a hold of Pam, her information is right down below here. Just click that link. It'll give you all her information. Reach out to her. She's here to help you grow. And I just would, I would appreciate it if you would just subscribe down below and hit save, or not save, hit like, and leave a comment. And we look forward to seeing you guys on our next podcast show. Thank you for joining us today.